From Tig Notaro turning a stage 2 cancer diagnosis into the most legendary set of the century.
Hello, good evening. I have cancer. How are you? I have cancer.
To Norm Macdonald breaking character one last time on Letterman.
Something is true, it is not sentimental, and I say in truth, I love you. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Here are 12 times comedians accidentally made their audiences cry at shows, starting with the set that made grown men weep in a 280-seat theater. Tig Notaro at Largo. It was August 3rd, 2012. A Friday night at Largo, a comedy club in Los Angeles known for unfinished material. The audience walked in expecting a normal Tig Notaro set. Instead, they walked into the most devastating 30 minutes in stand-up history.
So let's get a sense of your story. You get the diagnosis. You were diagnosed with cancer. You thought, okay, this is something I can handle.
Just days earlier, Tig had been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in both breasts. Before that, her mother had died in a freak accident. Before that, she'd nearly died from a C. diff infection. And in the middle of all of it, her relationship had ended. She walked on stage carrying every single piece of it. The room didn't know what to do. Some people laughed, some people went silent, and Tig just kept narrating her cascading personal apocalypse like it was a weather report.
People were laughing, and people were crying, and people were listening. It was such a mixture.
Louis C.K. happened to be sitting in that audience. The next day, he called her and said he wanted to release the audio of the show.
Cancer, and my mother died, and you know, like what my show was. And so when Louis suggested that, I was like, you're out of your mind. There's no way I'm releasing that.
It became one of the greatest stand-up performances of the 21st century. But while Tig opened her show with her own cancer diagnosis, this next comedian opened his with his newborn sons. Jimmy Kimmel's Billy monologued. May 1st, 2017. Jimmy Kimmel had been on paternity leave. The audience filed in expecting a typical Monday night monologue. Jokes about Trump, jokes about the news. Kimmel walked out, and within 10 seconds, every person in the building knew something was wrong.
I have a story to tell about something that happened to our family last week. I'm sorry, I try not to get emotional, but it was a scary story.
His newborn son, Billy, had been born just over a week earlier. A nurse noticed he was a bit purple a few hours after delivery. By Monday morning, Billy was being prepped for open heart surgery.
Found that Billy was born with a heart disease, something called tetralogy of Fallot with pulmonary atresia.
Kimmel was sobbing through the entire monologue. The studio audience cried with him, that specific kind of choked silence a room makes when 1,000 people are trying not to fall apart at once.
He went in there with a scalpel and did some kind of magic that I couldn't even begin to explain. He opened the valve and the operation was a success. It was the longest 3 hours of my life.
Then, halfway through, he pivoted. He turned the worst week of his life into a plea about pre-existing condition coverage that became one of the most discussed late-night moments of the decade. Even Obama tweeted about it.
If your baby is going to die, and it doesn't have to, it shouldn't matter how much money you make. I think that's something that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or something else, we all agree on that, right? I mean, we do.
Just like Jimmy turned his grief into a public appeal, this next comedian turned his into something even more incendiary. Dave Chappelle's 846. June 2020, the world was on fire. George Floyd had been murdered, cities were burning, and Dave Chappelle, who had been silent for weeks, walked out into a field in Yellow Springs, Ohio. He held a black notebook he hadn't rehearsed from.
Anyway, this is weird and less than ideal circumstances to do a show. But the only way to figure out if this shit will actually work is to do the goddamn show. This man kneeled on a man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Can you imagine that?
The title was 846, symbolizing how long Officer Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck. It was also Dave's own time of birth. The audience came expecting jokes, but got something else entirely. Dave told them about the Northridge earthquake, how it lasted maybe 35 seconds and felt like the end of the world. Then he asked them to imagine 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The audience went silent.
This kid thought he was gonna die. He knew he was gonna die. He called for his mother. He called for his dead mother.
Then he started saying the names: Floyd, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, John Crawford, Philando Castile, and on his own birth time, 8:46 in the morning, his voice cracked completely. It became YouTube's #1 trending video of 2020.
Man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I can't get that number out of my head because it was my time of birth on my birth certificate. I was born at 8:46 in the morning, and they killed this in 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
But while Dave channeled rage, this next comedian channeled something more personal, a hidden truth she'd been hiding from her audience for years. Hannah Gadsby's Nanette, Sydney Opera House, 2017. Hannah Gadsby walks on stage and the show begins like every other hour she'd toured before. Easy jokes about being a gay woman from Tasmania, a story about a homophobic guy at a bus stop who almost beat her up. Everyone laughed, then halfway through she stops. She tells them she's been controlling the tension in the room, that she's good at her job, and that to get the laughs, she had to shorten the story. She had to cut off the ending. The man came back. He realized she was gay. He beat her up. Nobody helped her. She didn't go to a hospital. She didn't go to the police. Her voice cracks. She's visibly shaking with rage. The Sydney Opera House sits in absolute silence, broken only by sobs. The Guardian called the audience response mass bloodletting. It won a Peabody, won an Emmy, and became one of the watershed cultural moments of the decade. And while Hannah revealed a hidden truth on stage, this next comedian revealed the truth in front of the entire country. It's Pete Davidson's SNL, October 2023. October 14th, 2023. Pete Davidson is hosting the season premiere of SNL. The world is reeling from the October 7th attacks in Israel and the early days of the Gaza war. Nobody knows what the cold open will be. Pete walks out and opens with a joke at his own expense.
This week, we saw the horrible images and stories from Israel and Gaza. And I know what you're thinking. Who better to comment on it than Pete Davidson?
Polite laughter. Then he gets serious. He tells them, in a lot of ways, he's actually a good person to talk about this.
I was 7 years old. My dad was killed in a terrorist attack. So I know something about what that's like.
His father, NYFD firefighter Scott Davidson, South Tower, September 11th. The studio goes dead silent. Pete describes how seeing pictures of suffering Israeli and Palestinian children dragged him back to a really horrible place. And then he tells them how his mother accidentally saved him with an Eddie Murphy delirious tape.
I really don't, and I never will, but sometimes comedy is really the only way forward through tragedy. My heart is with everyone whose lives have been destroyed this week.
He closes with one line about how comedy is the only way through tragedy, and then he tries to do exactly that. But while Pete confronted his audience with the worst day of his life, this next comedian grieved for the job he had wanted since he was a kid. Conan's Tonight Show farewell, January 22nd, 2010. Conan O'Brien had spent 7 months in a public brutal war with NBC. They were taking The Tonight Show from him after 7 months, the job he'd dreamed of since childhood. The audience showed up that night expecting bitterness. They got the opposite.
Now we've had a lot of fun being here these last 7 months, but like everything in life, the fun has to come to an end a decade too early.
For most of the hour, Conan kept it light. He made jokes about NBC. He blew NBC's money on absurd props on his way out the door. But near the end, he stopped joking.
I made a joke just a couple of minutes ago, and it was a joke that we don't care at this point. We couldn't care more. We care so much. We just want to have the greatest show tonight. We want to have so much fun on television, and that's what we are going to do.
He told the audience, I made a joke that we don't care. We couldn't care more. We care so much. He thanked his crew. He thanked his fans. Andy Richter visibly held back tears. The audience wept openly. Will Ferrell led an all-star Freebird sing-along on stage. It's still considered one of the greatest farewell speeches in the history of late-night TV. But while Conan said goodbye to his job, this next comedian said goodbye to the man who gave him his career. Norm Macdonald's final Letterman set, May 15th, 2015. Letterman is retiring in days. Norm Macdonald, the most beloved guest in the history of the shows, has been booked to do the final stand-up set. The audience expects vintage Norm, cold, deadpan, anti-sentimental, and for most of his set, that's exactly what they got.
I can't believe it's been a quarter century since I made my television debut. It was all different back then.
He did the bit about phones being avoiding cameras. He did the bit about Germany. He did the bit about people making him afraid of North Korea on the news. But at the end, near the very end, Norm just stops. He puts the act down.
My last time on the David Letterman show, I understand. And you guys, we all know that David Letterman was the greatest talk show host who ever lived.
He tells a story about being 13 years old in Toronto, watching a young David Letterman do stand-up on a local talk show, about one specific joke that stayed with him as his favorite stand-up joke ever. He retells the joke, the same joke Letterman told 30 years before, and then he says this.
Something is true, it is not sentimental, and I say in truth, I love you. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
His voice breaks, tears stream down his face. Letterman gets up from behind his desk and walks across the stage to hug him.
Oh my God.
Very funny, Norm, and thank you. Thank you for everything.
After Norm died of cancer in 2021, a diagnosis he had hidden from the public for 9 years, this clip became one of the most replayed moments in late night history. While Norm said goodbye to his hero, this next comedian said goodbye to his good friend. Stephen Colbert's tribute to Jon Stewart, August 6, 2015. Jon Stewart's last episode of The Daily Show. Former correspondents had been trooping on stage all night for cameos. Stewart, awkward with sentiment, was trying to wrap things up. Then Stephen Colbert refused to let him.
Obviously, Stephen Colbert, who was a correspondent on The Daily Show before launching his own career, he kind of went off script.
And you said to me and to many other people here years ago never to thank you because we owe you nothing. It is one of the few times I've known you to be dead wrong.
He told Jon it was one of the few times he'd known him to be dead wrong. They owed him. They learned from him.
You are infuriatingly good at your job, okay? All of us who were lucky enough to work with you for 16 years are better at our jobs because we got to watch you do yours. And we are better people for having known you.
Stewart looks down. He can't make eye contact. His eyes fill with tears, and he covers his face with his hand. The audience erupts, applause, sobs, all of it at once. It is universally remembered as one of the most genuine displays of love ever televised between two late-night hosts. And while Colbert ambushed Jon Stewart with kindness, this next comedian ambushed his audience with the worst year of his life. Gary Gulman's The Great Depression. October 5th, 2019, HBO drops a comedy special. The audience hits play expecting an hour of jokes. The first thing they see is a man on stage admitting to severe mental illness in front of a half-empty room. That man is Gary Gulman.
What's it feel like to have such a positive moment?
Well, it's uncomfortable.
He had just been hospitalized. He had just undergone electroconvulsive therapy. He had moved back into his mother's house at age 46, and he had agreed to film all of it.
I needed to transition out of stand-up to become a teacher. I would go back to school. I had the whole plan in my head because I couldn't do stand-up anymore.
What followed over 75 minutes was the bravest hour of comedy anyone had ever seen. Tearful, virtuosic, cut between live footage and documentary segments of his mother and his psychiatrist. And in the conversation that closes the special, Gary admits the thing he had never said out loud.
I was frequently Googling painless suicides, and Siri always tells you what phone number to...
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Siri is so thoughtful. It will tell you...
He tells the audience he had been Googling painless suicides. He tells them Siri kept giving him the number for the suicide prevention hotline. He tells them there are no painless suicides, and that he's grateful he stuck around for this.
And now I can't wait to do more shows, and I'm so grateful I stuck around for this.
Judd Apatow, who produced the special, called it the bravest hour he'd ever been involved in. Audiences left theaters laughing and sobbing in equal measure, sometimes within the same breath. And while Gary made the audience cry by exposing himself, this next comedian made his audience cry by exposing the rules of his entire industry. Bo Burnham's Inside. Bo Burnham hadn't performed live in 5 years. He'd quit because of onstage panic attacks that nearly destroyed him. So when Inside dropped on Netflix in May 2021, audiences expected a bedroom comedy special. What they got was something closer to a cry for help disguised as one.
Hey kids, today we're going to learn about the world. the world that's around us is pretty amazing.
The special opens with a children's song, innocent, earnest, about how the world is amazing and everything works together. Then Bo's sock puppet enters the frame, and the whole thing curdles. The puppet says the world is built with blood and genocide and exploitation. The puppet says the global network of capital functions to separate the worker from the means of production. The puppet, a sock, has a meltdown.
Why do you rich fucking white people insist on seeing every socio-political conflict through the myopic lens of your own self-actualization?
That tone carried through 90 minutes of a man alone in a guest house, slowly losing his grip on the camera. By the time it ended, viewers across the internet were genuinely worried whether Bo was safe. Reddit threads filled up with people describing crying through the entire final third. But we were saving the most devastating breakdown for last: Patton Oswalt's annihilation. April 2016. Patton Oswalt's wife, true crime writer Michelle McNamara, died suddenly in her sleep. He was left a single father to a 7-year-old daughter. He didn't perform for over a year. When he finally returned to stand-up, he closed his Netflix special with 25 minutes of pure grief. But before that, he set up the marriage. The good marriage. The one he was in before everything fell apart.
Being married is the best. I love it. Although anyone here, no matter how good of a marriage is that you're in, you know this, you will have.
He tells them about a fight with his wife, the kind of fight where someone storms out of the house. He tells them how he stormed out and went on a hike, and halfway through realized they were arguing about nothing. He had to apologize.
She went to where I hike because she knows where I go hiking. Parked her car where I couldn't see it, wrote a note, left it on my windshield.
She had left him a note on his windshield. Stop, get out of your car, walk to the park bench in front of you. I love you.
Long, terrifying walk to I love you. Holy shit.
That was Michelle, the wife he was about to lose. The audience laughs. They don't know yet what's coming in the back half of the special. When Patton tells them about the morning he had to wake his daughter up and tell her mother was gone, and the laughter dissolves into sniffling and a comedy special turns into something else entirely.